So, you want to be a fashion designer. Here's the untold truth of what it's like day to day, week to week, month to month. Now, before I come in here sounding like a dream stomper, I want to let you know that I have worked professionally as a designer for over a decade, and I have loved every minute of it. If I had to do it all over again, I would. But there are so many misconceptions from what you see on Project Runway to what you see on TV compared to what it's actually like, which is why I'm making this video. I'm going to give you a 10,000 foot view of what it's actually like to work as a fashion designer, and I'm going to tell you the number one reason most designers still love their job, even though it's not as glamorous as it may seem. I'm Heidi, founder of successfulfashiondesigner.com, and I teach designers like you the real world skills that you actually need to get ahead in fashion. All the stuff you don't learn in fashion school. A lot of people don't talk about this stuff, so I like to call it fashion industry secrets revealed. So let's dig in. What does the average day, week, or month look like from the design through development cycle for a fashion designer? The big overview, it's a pretty typical 3-step process of what you might expect. Inspiration, design, production, repeat. It's what goes on inside of each of these steps where things start to get really interesting, where the process starts to vastly differ from what you see on TV and in Project Runway. Now, quick disclaimer. Whether you're working in a small brand versus a large brand, some of the timelines, as well as whose job some of these tasks may be, is going to vary. This is a global overview of what the general process looks like and what the responsibilities of a fashion designer are. Step 1, inspiration. It's a pretty fun phase. You get to spend a lot of time shopping, hanging out on Pinterest, looking for colors, fabrics, trims, prints, construction details, gathering all the inspiration for what you want to put into the next collection. During this inspiration process, you may be putting together mood boards for things like style or things like color that are going to drive the assortment. Maybe something like this, and like this. But there's also a lot of stuff in this process that is not super creative and not exactly what you might want to hear. Knocking off other designers happens all the time. You'll also be taking a lot of creative direction from design directors, from sales teams, from marketing departments. Everybody wants to give their opinion during the design and inspiration phase. You also have to do a lot of analysis of what sold well in past seasons. Looking at sales reports and seeing what items performed versus which ones didn't is going to give you a good idea as to what styles should be introduced for upcoming collections. Now, I know some of this may not sound as glamorous or creative as you might want it to be, but I promise there is a number one reason why being a designer is so magical, and I'm going to share that with you later. Now, during the inspiration phase, you may do some light hand sketching. These aren't going to be any fancy fashion illustrations. I'm talking rough sketches to just get some general concepts on paper. Now, if you're not a hand sketcher, that's okay. I'm not either. I say this because it can be part of the process, but it doesn't have to be. The other thing you may not have thought about when it comes to the inspiration process is that most of the time, the designs you're going to be creating are going to be very commercial. They're not going to be conceptual. And this is a misconception that a lot of people have who aren't familiar with the industry or design students who come straight out of fashion school. Here's the thing. Runway designs do not sell. Designers put garments on the runway that are artsy, they are conceptual, they are meant to catch your attention, they are meant to grab the media attention. They are for marketing and advertising and publicity. But most of the time, these designs, these really fancy artistic things that people fall so in love with, they don't go into production. They don't go to market. They're not actually ever even made for sale. Most of the time when you're working as a designer, you're designing commercial products. These are everyday clothes for everyday people. So once you've gathered all this inspiration, you've analyzed past sales, you've reviewed input from different departments, you've gotten inspiration from what other brands are doing. You may have even gotten inspiration in the form of knocking off what other brands are doing. Yes, I promise, it happens all the time. Once this inspiration phase is done, you're ready to start design. So, step 2. Design. Now, during the design phase, you may continue on with some of the rough hand sketches that you had from your initial inspiration phase. But most of the time, you're going to start hashing out ideas in Adobe Illustrator, drawing what are called flats. Don't be surprised if at this stage you spend something like 20 or more hours per week sketching designs in Illustrator. You're going to be mocking up tons of different variations and all the different color options, printing them out and assembling them in cork boards like this. This is what a design board looks like in real life. And throughout the season, you'll take styles off, you'll add new styles, you'll continually be making adjustments to the fashion flats in Illustrator, printing out new ones, and moving them around on these boards like paper dolls until you finalize the collection. You'll also look at fabric options and trim options and finalize the colors and every single detail about the garment. Once the collection's been finalized, you may put together finished design boards for each style that looks something like this. Here's one, and here's one. The little swatches of fabric are references for what fabric quality is being used for that style. Once the design boards are finalized and every style has all of its details, it's time to go to step 3. Production. Now, the first stage for production is putting together tech packs. I've talked extensively about what tech packs are in other videos, but essentially it's the blueprint to give the factory so they know how to make your garment. It's a set of instructions. You'll send these tech packs out to various factories to source each style. You'll need to get back information like pricing, minimum order quantity, and what the turnaround and lead time is for each factory to create this garment for you. Once the factory for each garment is picked, you'll go into sampling and production. This stage is all about follow-up, and tracking. You may work with various software, you may work with a ton of spreadsheets, but the bottom line is you have to know what every piece of every part of every garment, what the status is at any given time, and you need to make sure that things are on track to meet your deadlines. I used to have a boss who at any given moment would come over and ask me, what's the status of this button, this hang tag, this label, this fabric? And she would expect me to know off the top of my head what the status of anything was at any given time. Now, mind you, I was working on something between 24 to 36 different styles. It was a lot to keep track of. So you have to be super organized during this stage. The factory will send you submits for every little piece and part of the garment that has to be approved. You're going to review and send comments on things like embroidery. You may get 2 different color options and you've got to pick and tell the factory which one to use. Yarn colors for contrast stitching and design details. Interior labels and exterior heat seals. You need to approve these and make sure that the hand feel, how they are to the touch is good, that the text is all spelled right, that there's no mistakes, that everything's the right size. You have to communicate and approve all of these things with the factory and make sure that they're submitted on time so that your development process goes smoothly. You'll also receive real-life garments for prototypes and fit samples that you need to fit on a fit model, make sure they're constructed well, make sure they fit right, and send any comments. Again, communicate with the factory what changes do need to be made, what is approved, and again, continue to push them to make sure that things stay on track. Once everything is approved, every little piece of every little garment, the factory starts production. And while they're busy doing production, you get started on the next season. Gather inspiration from the competition, review sales history to see what makes sense to introduce again, start sketching tons of flats in Adobe Illustrator, create tech packs to send to the factories, manage product development again. And while this is not as glamorous as it looks in the movies and in TV, you're not frolicking in fabric all day. The number one reason designers love doing this kind of work, the thing that keeps us going day after day, even when it's stressful, even when it's high pressure, even when it's super competitive, is that seeing that finished garment, there is nothing like it in the world. Seeing it hanging on a rack in a clothing store in New York City, seeing your design on a model in a magazine, that never gets old. Even opening that box when bulk production arrives and seeing that finished garment in your own hands, it is a priceless feeling. So while yes, you will spend a lot of time on the computer gathering inspiration, you'll spend a lot of time sketching fashion flats in Adobe Illustrator, you'll spend a lot of time creating tech packs in Microsoft Excel or some other industry software, and you'll spend a lot of time tracking and following up the entire development process. But the excitement of seeing something that went from a digital sketch to a real life physical garment, there is just nothing like it in the world. If you like this video, please hit the subscribe button below and give me a thumbs up. And for more free tips, tutorials, and advice on how to get ahead in fashion, head on over to successfulfashiondesigner.com and sign up for my email list. I share tons of stuff there that you don't see on YouTube. I'd also love to hear from you. What part of the process that I shared with you sounds the most exciting? Inspiration, design, or production? Let me know below by leaving a comment. Hey, Lana, lay down. Down. I'm Heidi, founder of Successful Fashion Designer. This is what a design corkboard looks like. And throughout the season, you'll add new files,